The flight had just begun to settle into its usual rhythm, seatbelts clicked open, trays lowered, the faint scent of reheated meals drifting through the cabin. People murmured in little pockets of conversation, a couple planning their vacation, a businessman tapping impatiently at his laptop, a child asking endless questions about clouds. Amidst the buzz of voices, one passenger seemed to exist in another world. She sat in row 14, by the window. Her dark hair framed a face that was calm but unreadable, her eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the glass. While others stretched, laughed, or signaled flight attendants for drinks, she never moved, never spoke. A flight attendant passing by paused for a moment, tray in hand, watching her. "Would you like something to drink?" the attendant asked softly. The woman's gaze flicked up briefly, then she shook her head once. Not a word. People noticed in small, passing ways. The elderly couple behind her whispered about how strange she seemed, traveling alone without a book, without headphones, without any sign of interest in the world around her. A man across the aisle stole a glance more than once, intrigued but slightly unsettled by her stillness. Her silence wrapped around her like armor. If she felt the stares, she didn't acknowledge them. Instead, she breathed in steady patterns, almost as if counting each inhale and exhale. She carried no restless energy, no nervous fidgeting, only a composed stillness that felt deliberate, almost practiced. To most, she was invisible, just another passenger on just another flight. But the truth sat quietly with her. Silence was safer than words, and the less anyone knew about her, the better. She was not there to be seen. She was waiting, for what, no one yet knew. The calm hum of the engines lulled some passengers toward sleep, while others lost themselves in screens and idle chatter. Everything seemed ordinary, until the calm shattered in an instant. A sharp crackle came over the intercom, the captain's voice uneven, "Ladies and gentlemen, then silence." A beat later, a dull thud echoed faintly from the front of the plane. People exchanged confused glances, brows furrowed. Suddenly, the cockpit door jerked open, and the co-pilot stumbled out, his face pale, his voice shaking. "The captain, he's collapsed. He's unconscious." Gasps rippled through the cabin. A woman clutched her child tighter, a man muttered a prayer under his breath, and one teenager pulled out his phone in trembling hands before realizing there was no signal at 30,000 feet. The flight attendants rushed forward, panic written across their faces. The co-pilot tried to keep his composure, but his hands were shaking, his voice unsteady. I need help. Is there anyone here with medical training? A doctor, a nurse." Two passengers scrambled forward to assist with the fallen captain, dragging medical kits from the overhead compartments. But even as they worked, fear pressed heavier into the cabin. Who would fly the plane? The co-pilot returned to the cockpit, his voice urgent, speaking into the radio, but the static hissed back at him. The turbulence began to rattle trays, spilling drinks, sending a wave of unease through the passengers. Children whimpered. Someone shouted, "Are we safe?" Chaos swelled, and no one had an answer. The giant machine carried hundreds of souls through the thin air, but suddenly it felt leaderless, fragile. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the engines. And then, for the first time since boarding, the silent woman in row 14 slowly unbuckled her belt. All eyes followed her as she rose from her seat. There was no hesitation in her step, no trace of panic in her expression. While others clung to armrests and whispered frantic prayers, she walked the narrow aisle with the calm certainty of someone who already knew what she had to do. The co-pilot looked up from the cockpit doorway, his forehead slick with sweat, his voice breaking. "Ma'am, please sit down, it's dangerous up here." She didn't flinch. Her voice, low but steady, cut through the chaos. "Not more dangerous than leaving you alone at the controls." Before anyone could protest, she slipped past him into the cockpit. She slid into the captain's seat, her hands moving over the controls with practiced precision, as if the years she had tried to bury melted away in an instant. Her voice transformed, sharp and commanding. She pressed the radio button. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Raven 1, pilot incapacitated. I am assuming command." The co-pilot blinked, startled. "Raven 1, who are you?" The woman's eyes didn't leave the horizon as she adjusted the throttle, correcting the plane's descent. "Former Air Force. Call sign Raven 1. The cabin behind her buzzed with shock. Passengers leaned into the aisle, straining to hear. Whispers spread like wildfire. "She's a pilot. Air Force. We're going to be okay, aren't we?" Slowly, the plane steadied, its trembling smoothened into controlled flight. The co-pilot exhaled with relief, watching her hands dance across the panel with confident ease. For the first time since the crisis began, hope filled the cabin. The woman who had hidden in silence, unnoticed, now carried every life on board with her unshakable voice. Her secret was out, and at 30,000 feet, she had become their salvation.